The stars above El Yari Prime were quiet, soft, and filled with hope. Their light drifted over the white towers of the capital city, reflecting off golden spires and smooth crystal domes. The El Yari people stood under those stars and waited there, eyes full of desperate dreams. They had no weapons, no warships. Their scientists had never designed a gun, never built a fleet. They were healers, thinkers, artists, but they were dying. Their world had been poisoned by centuries of slow rock corruption in their atmosphere, weakness in their gene stream, crumbling infrastructure no longer able to support their way of life. Disease had returned, crops had failed, even their great sky bridges were cracking. So, they made a choice, one they had avoided for generations. They sent a signal, an old one, broadcast through deep space channels left untouched for centuries, a message of peace, a plea for help. And they waited. No one knew who would answer. Some believed the ancient protectorate might return. Others hoped the Soldari empires would remember their old allies. But none of them expected what came instead. It started as a shadow. The El Yari sky, once full of soft purple clouds and shining moons, darkened without warning. No thunder, no wind. Just a slow-growing blackness that spread across the heavens like ink spilling in water. The people looked up. At first, they thought it was a storm. Then they saw it. Ships. Thousands of them. Wide, black, and silent, marked vessels that moved in perfect formation. It's like predators, like machines built for one thing only. A whisper moved through the capital like a cold wind. They have come. The first ship landed without speaking. It didn't open hatches or offer greetings. It didn't show a flag. It simply touched down, steam hissing from its undercarriage. Heat cracking the marble beneath it. El Yari leaders stepped forward, their robes shaking slightly. They had rehearsed what to say. Words of peace, gratitude. But the ship opened before they could speak, and what stepped out was not what they expected. They had imagined ambassadors, scientists, diplomats. What they saw was a human, soldier in black armor, tall, unblinking, helmet, sealed, weapon drawn, and behind him came hundreds more, each one silent, each one scanning, each one prepared for war. The El Yari Prime Minister tried to step forward, hands raised in greeting. The lead Deathworlder shoved him back with the butt of a rifle. No words, no permission, just action. Within seconds, drones flew out from the ship's sides, zipped through the capital, scanning buildings, faces, voices. Children screamed. Old ones collapsed. The humans said nothing. They didn't need to. The message was clear. They weren't here to talk. They were here to control. The El Yari Council demanded an explanation. They gathered in their high tower, voices shaking, their message sent in peace. Why was Earth's military here? Why no warning? No answers? The response was short and cold. Earth received your SOS. Threat detected. Planet under review. Compliance required. Silence preferred. The Council didn't understand. Threat. What threat? There had never been one. But Earth had a different way of seeing the universe, to the Deathworlders. Weakness was a threat. Infection spread not through weapons, but through desperation. Civilizations fell not because they fought, but because they were too soft to survive. The El Yari had shown weakness in their signal. They had begged, and to Deathworlders, mercy was not given, it was removed. Scans began, not for technology, not for weapons, for DNA irregularities, emotional instability, AI variants, behavioral patterns. The humans weren't helping, they were hunting something. And when they didn't find it, they assumed it was hidden in the city of Loras. A medical center was vaporized from orbit after refusing entry to scanning drones in the port of Sirith. A child was dragged away for questioning after showing signs of elevated neural activity in the sky. A Deathworlder dreadnought hovered silently over the El Yari moon, its weapons armed, and still the humans said nothing. The El Yari tried to resist peacefully. With words, they broadcast images of their history, their culture, or kindness. One Deathworlder ship shot the transmission tower in mid-broadcast. The Prime Minister's final words were, "We only wanted to survive." But survival, the Deathworlders believed, was not something you begged for, it was something you took, in a dark command center above the planet. Commander Reese Volan of Earth's Deathworlder Armada stood in silence. He watched the feed streets, filled with running civilians, black armored soldiers locking down plazas, red sensors pinging false threats. To his left, his tactical AI whispered, "Contamination probability, 0.003%. To his right, another console chimed, "Civilian resistance rising. Orders." Commander Volan didn't blink. He pressed a button. "Activate ground control. Begin. Orbital sweep. No resistance allowed if they don't comply. Remove the noise." One of his officers hesitated. "They haven't attacked us," he said softly. Valen looked at him. "No," he said, "but they might one day. That's enough." Back on the planet, fires rose. Shuttles flew overhead. Streets were emptied. Zones were marked in black. The Eliari dream was gone. Their beautiful cities now, under human boots. Their skies no longer soft, their mercy, answered by death. The SOS had been heard, and now it could never be taken back, because Earth had responded with the full force of its Deathworlders, and once they arrived, there was no going back. The great crystal towers of Eliari Prime stood still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. But in the streets below, there was only chaos. Panic swept through the cities like fire. The Eliari had always believed in peace, always trusted, in diplomacy, in words, in calm. But the Deathworlders had brought none of those things. They had come with cold eyes, black armor, and orders that allowed no space for questions. From the sky, more human warships descended. Giant metal beasts shaped like daggers, their engines humming low and heavy. Deathworlder dropships rained. Down, one after the other, slamming into the planet's surface like falling meteors. Every landing zone became a command post. Every street became a checkpoint. Soldiers poured out with rifles ready, visors glowing, and voices silent. They did not speak to the Eliari. They gave no explanations. They only moved fast, calculated, perfect. At first, the Eliari tried to cooperate. They welcomed the humans. With open hands, they showed them data about the failing weather systems, broken food cycles, collapsing medical fields. But the Deathworlders didn't care about those things. They scanned every room, every mind, every signature of energy. And when they found something unfamiliar, anything not listed in their threat database, they destroyed it. In the city of Velen, the Temple of Knowledge was reduced to rubble after Deathworlder engineers claimed the building housed untested AI fragments. The Eliari scholars begged them to stop. They said it was only memory, a museum of history. But one soldier simply raised his weapon and answered with a short, brutal blast. "History can lie," he said. "Data cannot." Temple had stood for 6,000 years. It was gone in 6 seconds. In the High Council chambers of Eliari Prime, leaders gathered once more. There was shouting now. Fear had broken through their calm. They no longer spoke in smooth tones and careful phrases. Their voices were sharp, fast, terrified. "This is not protection," one elder said. "This is invasion. We'll kill." "Us all," cried another. They begged for help, and they came as conquerors. We must stop them. Someone shouted, but no one knew how. The Eliari had no weapons, no fleets. Their oldest warships had been turned into power stations centuries ago. Even their defense satellites had been taken offline to conserve energy. Their world was open, exposed, vulnerable. And Earth had known that the moment the SOS was sent, the message had not summoned allies. It had summoned hunters out in the plains near the city of Al. The first true resistance began. Not organized, not violent. It's just a small group of farmers who refused to abandon their land when a Deathworlder patrol came to secure the zone. The patrol warned them once, then twice. The third time they opened fire. Not to wound. Not to... Frightened to kill, 13 Eliari died in seconds. The fields they had tended for generations were burned to ash. A single boy survived, hiding beneath the roots of a grain machine. When he was found, he looked up at the human soldier and whispered, "We just wanted food." The soldier didn't reply. He simply walked away. Across the planet, fear turned to silence. The Eliari stopped speaking in the streets. They stopped moving in groups. They stopped protesting, pleading, trying. Because every time they spoke up, someone vanished. Sometimes it was a mother taken for cognitive testing. Sometimes it was a teacher removed for pattern deviation. Sometimes it was an entire neighborhood marked non-compliant and erased from the map, and always the Deathworlders said the same words, "For your safety." Commander Reese Fallon stood aboard the command platform hovering above the capital. His eyes scanned the planet through massive screens. Red dots appeared across the globe zones marked for cleansing. His officers stood silent behind him, waiting for orders. A voice came from his wristcom. Civilian distress calls increasing. Local population dropping. Media spread under control. Protocol remains within limits. Valen didn't blink. "Good," he said, then added, "Begin full system scan. Level 4 sweeps. If the planet's hiding anything, I want it dug out." "But sir," one officer asked carefully, "what if it's just desperation?" "What? If they really are only asking for help?" Valen turned slowly. "They are," he said, "and that's the problem. Desperate civilizations make dangerous decisions. Today it's a signal. Tomorrow it's a virus. We finish this now." Back on the ground, the Eliari began to disappear. Not all at once, just one by one. A parent here, a child there, a scholar, singer, a priest. They were taken in the night, in the day, in the quiet between footsteps. Some believed they were being relocated, others feared something darker. The truth, no one knew. No one came back. And yet, no one fought. Not because they didn't want to, because they didn't know. How the Eliari had spent their history building beauty, the Deathworlders had spent theirs. Preparing for war, there was no contest. In a small village high in the northern sky ranges, an Eliari elder lit a lantern and placed it on the steps of their old star-watching tower. He stood there for hours, watching the skies, waiting for anyone to come with mercy. When a human drone spotted him, scanned his body, found no threat, and left. But the next morning, the tower was gone, just black dust and broken stars. The Deathworlders had arrived, and now the Eliar understood, their SOS had not. Not summoned kindness. It had triggered protocol. They weren't being helped, they were being assessed. And one by one, they were being removed. The capital square of Eliari Prime had once been filled with life. Markets thrived, musicians played in open gardens, and children chased glowing sky kites across warm blue stones. Now, the square stood cold and lifeless. The color was gone. The laughter was gone. And in their place were steel towers, glowing scanners, and the soft, constant hum of Deathworlder surveillance drones circling overhead like silent birds of prey, every hour. Another group of humans in black armor marched across the square. They never stopped to look around. They never slowed down. Their boots clicked in rhythm, one sound, one purpose, one warning. Earth had no intention of leaving. The Eliari Council, desperate for answers, requested a direct audience with the commander of the human fleet. After 3 days of silence, a response finally came, not through diplomacy, but through a screen. Commander Reese Fallon's face appeared in the middle of the high chamber. His eyes were tired, sharp, and focused like a knife pressed to glass. The Eliari Prime Minister stepped forward, his hands open in peace. "Commander," he said softly, "we are grateful you came, but we do not understand your methods. Our people are afraid. They're being removed, scanned, and some have not returned." Valen stared without emotion. "They were non-compliant," he replied. The Prime Minister blinked. "But they were. Scholars, citizens harmless. You were invited to help, not destroy." Valen leaned forward. You didn't invite us. You activated an emergency galactic beacon. That's not a request for conversation. That's a warning. And we responded the only way Earth knows how, with action. The chamber fell silent. The Elyari didn't understand. Valen did not explain to him. The matter was already simple. Elyari were too weak to protect themselves. Weakness led to collapse. Collapse became chaos. Chaos bred new threats. If Earth didn't take control, someone worse would. That's what history had taught humanity. That was what Earth's Deathworlders existed to prevent, so they didn't see their actions as invasion. They called it mercy. In the city of Calith, an Elyari doctor named Sira Nell tried to protect her patients from the Deathworlder patrols. Many of them were elderly, unable to pass the stress scans. Some were flagged as emotionally unstable simply for crying during evaluations. Sira hid them in the lower levels of her clinic. But Deathworlders didn't knock. They breached the entrance at dawn. The blast shattered the walls. Dust filled the halls. Sira stood in their way, arms wide. "These people are not threats," she cried as Soldier aimed his rifle. "They are non-cooperative," he said. "That's enough." Before the shot was fired, a second soldier lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he ordered. "Protocol 9. They're med passive." The first soldier hesitated. Sarah stared, frozen. Then finally, they backed away. Not because they agreed, but because a protocol said to wait. Sarah collapsed against the wall. Shaking, she had survived. But only by accident. Back in orbit, inside the Judgment, Commander Valen stood at the edge of a holographic map. Dozens of red points lit up across the planet. His AI assistant hovered beside him. "Resistance remains low," it reported, "but civilian emotion patterns are shifting. More cases of active grief, despair, loss of identity." Valen nodded. "Good, it means they're adjusting." AI paused. "Sir, new signals detected from Elyari communications grid. Cultural messaging, emotional appeals. They're trying to explain themselves." "Shut it down," Valen said. "But it's peaceful," the AI replied. "They're asking to be understood." "I don't care," he snapped. "That's how it always starts. One song, one plea, then influence, then instability. Won't let their grief become a weapon." The AI went silent, and the last of the Elyari broadcasts faded to static. Still, the Elyari didn't give up. In one final effort, the council prepared an offering, a single crystal tablet. Etched with memories of their civilization, joys, failures, art, sorrow. They placed it at the base of the human command tower, hoping it would be seen as a gesture of peace. A Deathworlder drone scanned the tablet, flagged it as unknown tech signature. 30 seconds later, a demolition unit arrived and vaporized it. The gesture was erased. Not even the ashes remained to the Elyari. It was cruelty. To the Deathworlders, it was necessary. The two sides weren't speaking different languages. They were speaking from different realities. In Earth's reality, trust was earned only through absolute control. Mercy was only shown to those who could fight for it. The moment you sent an SOS, you gave away your power. In Elyari reality, trust was automatic. Mercy was given to all, and an SOS was never meant to invite violence. But now they understood. Earth was not their savior. It was a firestorm in the shape of a fleet. In the final hours of that cycle, an Elyari child stood at the edge of a burned field, watching a Deathworlder patrol pass. She had no weapon. No hate in her eyes, only a question. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. One soldier paused. He looked at her just for a second. Then, he said quietly, "Because someone else would have done worse." Then he walked on, and the girl stood alone, surrounded by Ashdot. Earth had given them an answer, but it was not one the Elyari had ever asked for. It was not help. It was control, and control, when misunderstood, becomes something far worse than war. It becomes unforgiving mercy. The sun had just risen over the gleaming hills of Elyari Prime, casting soft gold light across the white crystal cities and wide-open plains. But the light did not bring hope. It only revealed the scars. The streets, once alive with peaceful Elyari life, were now filled with black armored patrols. The wind carried the low hum of drones that never slept. Skies were patrolled by warships too large to hide, their shadows always stretching across the ground like long, silent warnings. Elyari still tried to carry on. Small markets reopened in alleys. A few schools quietly resumed lessons underground. Priests lit candles in secret chambers, hoping the humans above would not see. But fear was everywhere. The Deathworlders weren't just watching, they were waiting. And no one knew what would happen when they stopped waiting. Then, one mistake changed everything. In the coastal city of Listen, a group of engineers worked on a broken power conduit deep below the city's surface. The old machines were Elyari built, fragile and outdated. But the engineers were trying to restore water and energy to thousands of homes. They didn't notice that one of their repair drones gave off a faint, regular signal just enough to trigger a Deathworlder orbital scan. Within 5 minutes, a full strike team was deployed. The soldiers arrived in dropships, their boots crashing down onto rooftops, their weapons glowing with warning lights. The engineers raised their hands in surrender, confused but calm. "We're only repairing." "Systems," said one of them. "This is not a weapon." The Deathworlders didn't respond. They placed all 7 engineers on the ground, scanned the area, and found the drone. It was old, rusted. But its AI code was self-written-adaptive to Earth. That was unacceptable. "Unregulated machine intelligence," said one Deathworlder. "Possible threat origin," said another, before the engineers could explain. They were taken away. The drone was destroyed. But Earth's system had already flagged the zone. Listen was now marked as a Class 3 anomaly site, which meant one thing. Fire protocol was activated. Fire protocol was not public knowledge. It wasn't announced or discussed. It was a last resort measure, built into Earth's war doctrine, used only when a foreign world showed signs of uncontainable deviation, not rebellion, not aggression, just unpredictability, because unpredictability was the one thing Deathworlders feared most. At 0300 hours, a black signal was sent from the Judgment. Earth's lead command ship at 0315, the sky above Listen turned white. For 10 full seconds, the city disappeared in light so bright, shadows burned themselves into walls. Then came the silence, then the wind, and the ash. Over 40,000 Elyari were gone. Gone not because they attacked, gone not because they resisted, gone because Earth thought they might be dangerous one day. News of the destruction spread faster than light, across Elyari Prime. Panic exploded. Families fled cities, temples emptied, underground shelters filled. People stopped trusting each other. If speaking to a Deathworlder could get you flagged, better to stay silent, better to hide. But there was nowhere left to run. Every mountain had a sensor. Every forest had a drone. Every spaceport was blocked by orbiting ships, the Elyari. Council begged Earth for answers. Commander Valen's reply was short. Listen failed containment scans. Fire protocol engaged to prevent galactic spread. Planet remains under review. The Prime Minister wept on the floor of the chamber. He didn't speak. There were no words left. Among the Elyari, something finally broke. It wasn't courage. It wasn't hatred. It was resignation. They had called for mercy. They had believed Earth would help. But now they understood what the Deathworlders truly were. Not saviors, not allies. Instruments, cold, calculated. Merciless Earth had looked at a sick, struggling species and decided it was safer to burn the patient than risk the disease. In the ruins of a small town outside, Listen, Deathworlder patrol found a child sitting beside a shattered sculpture. She was alone, her clothes torn by dust, her face silent. One soldier lowered his weapon and approached. The child looked up. "I was told humans were heroes," she said. The soldier paused, then replied, "We were. A long time ago, before we learned mercy kills more than war." He didn't stay. The child didn't move, and above them, another ship descended, ready to cleanse the next zone, back aboard the Judgment. Commander Valen reviewed a list of remaining unscanned zones. His AI assistant chimed. Multiple clusters still showing signs of anomalous mental resistance. Probability of non-cooperation, 68%. Recommendations? Valen asked. Fire protocol is efficient, clean, requires no direct combat. Minimal. Soldier loss. Maximum psychological control. He nodded. Send the order. On Elyari Prime, the sky turned red, then white, then black. One city at a time. One culture at a time. One life at a time. What began as a message of peace had become a memory written in flames, and no one, not the Elyari, not Earth, could turn it back. Beyond Elyari space, stars still burned peacefully in the night. Traders moved between systems. Diplomats held polite talks on shining space stations. And scholars debated the ethics of artificial sentience in high towers. But then, the footage began to spread. At first, it came from hidden Elyari transmitters. A smuggled image here, a flicker of an explosion there. Short clips of black-armored soldiers marching through streets. Drones dragging families away. Cities disappearing in fire. From orbit, with no warning, no trial. No chance to surrender. Then came the voices cut, static-filled recordings of mothers screaming for lost children. Priests begging for their temples to be spared. Doctors warning that hospitals had been vaporized with patients still. Inside, the galaxy watched. And for the first time in centuries, it trembled. This was not a war between two armies. This was a punishment. And the ones delivering it were the Deathworlders of Earth, in the neutral territory of the Celerin Rings. The Galactic Broadcast Council held an emergency session. Representatives from over 30 species gathered around a massive star map. Every hour, new red zones appeared on Elyari Prime, each one representing another scorched city, another silenced region. They said they were responding to a distress call, murmured one voice. This is not a response. This is extermination, replied another. What if we're next? Asked a third. No one had an answer, because every species had weakness. And Earth had made it clear, weakness is a threat. For centuries, the Deathworlders had kept to themselves. After the Orion Wars, they had closed their borders. Their fleets disappeared into deep space. Their leaders made no alliances, issued no warnings. Many believed Earth had grown tired of war. They were wrong. Earth hadn't grown tired. It had grown patient. And when the Elyari sent their signal, fear, when they showed pain, Earth saw it not as a call for aid, but as a danger to be erased in the Kaleri Dominion, where songships glide gently through crystal clouds. Entire planetary councils wept after watching the destruction of Elyari cities. The Kalari had once fought beside humans against ancient invaders. They had known Earth as noble, brave, but now they saw Earth as something else. If they do this to friends, whispered High Voice Alara, what do they do to enemies? In the Tridex cluster, pirate lords burned human flags and erased Earth trade routes from their maps. Stay out of our systems, they growled. We'll shoot first. But even they knew their threats were empty, because if Earth came for them, no wall, no fleet, no planet would survive. A single message from Elyari. Space leaked into the open net. It was short, a young voice, frightened, recorded. From inside a cracked bunker beneath the ruins of Listen. We only asked for help. Didn't know they would come like this. They don't speak, they don't listen. They scan, and then we vanish. Please, someone, anyone, make them stop. The message ended with silence, then the screen turned. To static, then black. In response, the Galactic Archive released a Level 7 threat advisory. Earth was now considered ultra-volatile, not for what they said, but for what they did without warning. Peacekeepers were advised not to approach any Deathworlder fleet. Medical ships were warned not to respond to any. Earth-based broadcasts, diplomatic channels were closed. No one wanted to be the next IR. No one wanted to send a message and summon Earth's answer. But Earth didn't care. They did not respond to the axis fear. They did not offer excuses. They did not defend their actions. Instead, Commander Volan of the Judgment issued a single wideband broadcast to all sectors. We answered a signal. We investigated a threat. We eliminated risk. If your species values survival, we recommend you do not repeat the Elyari's mistake. Earth no longer offers mercy. Earth ensures order. In the halls of power across the galaxy, leaders sat in silence. No one clapped. No one spoke. No one dared to reply. Because what Earth had done was more than destroy a civilization. It had sent a message louder than any weapon. A message burned in two. The stars' help will never come, and if it does, it will come with fire. Under the shattered moons of Elyari Prime, only silence remained. Cities once bright with music and light now lay in ash. Streets were empty, towers cracked and hollow. The sky was filled not with clouds, but with the silent movements of Earth's Deathworlder fleet, watching every corner of the dying planet, waiting for any reason to finish the job. Deep beneath the surface, inside the ruins of a learning dome buried by rubble, a small light flickered. A single power cell still worked. It hummed low, barely strong enough to power a recorder, a cracked lens, and a fading transmitter. And sitting in front of that lens was the last child of Sector 8. Her name was Talia Vert. She was 10 years old. Her hair was caked with dust. Her face was bruised. But her eyes were wide, glowing softly in the reflection of the dying dome. And though her voice shook, she pressed the red button and began to speak. My name is Talia. My parents were doctors. My brother was a music student. We lived in the eastern district of Calith. We had gardens. Small, but they were green. I liked to paint the trees blue. She paused. Her eyes moved to the rubble behind her. They came 4 days ago. The Deathworlders. They didn't speak to anyone. They just pointed. Then the loud sounds started, then the shaking. My school disappeared in a blink. They called it fire protocol. She held up a drawing scorched on the edges. A stick-figure family beneath a bright sun. They said we were a threat. But we weren't. We didn't fight, we just ran. My mother told me not to cry because the drones scan emotions now. If you cry, you vanish. Like she did. Like my brother did. Somewhere far above, Commander Reese Vollen stood aboard the Judgment. A flicker on his monitor showed a low-priority signal coming from beneath the eastern ruins. His AI flagged it. Unauthorized transmission. Low range. Civilian channel. He stared at it. Let it run, he said. Let them speak. They always do in the end. Talia kept talking. The humans think this is protection. They think we'll thank them. But all we ever did was ask for help. We were hungry, we were sick. We thought anyone would care. But Earth didn't send aid. Her voice grew. Quiet. They sent soldiers. She held up a shard of crystal, a symbol of her family house. This is all I have now. She leaned closer to the lens. Her voice, now soft, almost a whisper. If anyone out there can hear me, don't send signals to Earth. Don't ask them for help, because they don't bring medicine. They don't bring peace. She blinked slowly. They'd bring fire across the stars. That message slipped through the cracks. One Deathworlder technician, curious, copied the file before deleting the signal log. The file drifted into open channels spotted by scavengers, cavists, and eventually, the Galactic Broadcast Council, soon. The entire galaxy watched the message. The image of a dusty child beneath a broken city. A quiet voice, shaking hand. A warning. Talia's face was broadcast on Kalari moons, across Tridex hives, through Mirari seas, and into Varnari mine links. The reactions were all the same. Silence, followed by horror, then fear, because her words were not lies. Earth had not denied the attack. They had not apologized. They had not stopped. They had simply watched her transmission, let it play. Like, they were proud of what she said. In the halls of the Soldari High Conclave, ancient leaders debated what to do. If this continues, one said, No species will dare speak to Earth again. Another replied, maybe that's the goal. But one elder, older than them all, spoke a final thought. She is not just a warning. She is the proof. Mercy is no longer trusted, and Earth is turned into a weapon with no chain. Back on El Yari Prime, the dome that held Talia collapsed. No rescue came. No one responded. No voice answered her, but her message had already spread too far, in quiet places. Children on distant worlds learned her name, Talia Virith, the girl who warned. The stars, the last El Yari voice, the spark that lit 1,000 fears, and Earth knew it. They didn't try to stop the fear. They wanted it, because now, silence had become survival. No one would send a signal again. No one would call for help. Not. After her, the galaxy had always been ruled by silence between wars. For decades, species had traded carefully, debated endlessly, and avoided open conflict. Every empire knew the cost of battle, and so they kept the peace, not through trust, but through distance, until Earth broke that silence, until Earth showed what a true, out of Deathworlder armada could do to a world that dared to beg. And now, the silence wasn't peace anymore. It was fear, in the void above El Yari Prime. The last Deathworlder command ship, Judgment, hovered like a shadow made from steel and silence. Inside, Commander Reese Vallon stood before a massive holomap. The image of the galaxy glowed red in dozens of systems. Each red mark represented a flagged transmission. Each flagged signal represented a risk, and Earth had made a decision. We cannot wait for the next plea, Vallon said quietly. His officers stood behind him, armor gleaming, hands locked behind their backs. No one spoke. No one questioned. The AI voice beside him added coldly. 59 planetary systems show signs of emotional instability or ideological decay. 23 have broadcasted peaceful assistance requests in the past decade. 11 are within El Yar tier threat levels. Vallon nodded, then spoke the words the galaxy had feared would come. Initiate judgment protocol. Across all marked systems. Let the stars know we no longer wait to be summoned. The order spread like wildfire through vacuum. Earth's hidden. Fleets, stationed across black zones of space, began to move. Ships once cloaked near asteroid belts now turned toward planets that hadn't even noticed they were being watched. Entire colonies that had thought themselves safe now received a single message. Assessment in progress. Do not resist. No introductions, no diplomats, no choice. In the Varnari Cradle worlds, panic erupted as 5 Deathworlder dreadnoughts entered orbit without warning. Their leaders begged for a meeting, sent out gifts, opened all communication lines. The response was simple. Your fear has already condemned you. And one by one their cities were scanned, Judge Dan cleansed, the trade moon of Delnax, where 20 species gathered for peaceful commerce. A Deathworlder squad shut down all transmissions and isolated each delegation into silence. Each race was tested for future aggression potential. Those who failed, they weren't punished, they were erased. Back in the central systems. The Galactic Broadcast Council, once the highest authority for peace, collapsed. Dozens of members resigned in terror. Some fled. A few vanished completely. Those who remained did the only thing they could. They sent nothing. No protests, no warnings, because Earth had shown the truth. It would not wait for violence, it would prevent it with absolute force in the Kaleri sanctuaries. Elders debated returning to isolation. Hide the signal beacons, one said. Shut down our archives. They won't find us, said another. But a third elder, older and wiser, only whispered, they've already found us. We're just not a priority yet. Pirate worlds went dark. Raiders, once proud of their chaos, now buried their comms. No. One dared to breathe the wrong frequency, because Earth was no longer an empire. It was a judgment. A final one, and it did not care who cried first in secret. One former diplomat from the Saldari Alliance recorded a message for what she feared would be the last generation of her species. Do not beg, do not call. They do not come with answers. They come with calculation. Earth is no longer a world. It is a mirror that sees only danger. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, its people did not cheer. They did not watch the fires. They sent across the stars. They did not even question the silence of those they destroyed. They had become used to the price of peace, and the leaders who made that peace possible, like Valen, had been chosen, because they didn't flinch, not from war, not from screams, not from mercy, and above El Yari Prime, where ash still drifted through ruined skies, the judgment finally turned its engines toward the next system. Talia Virith's voice still echoed in black channels, whispered from ship to ship, system to system. But Earth did not respond to voices. It responded to weakness, and the galaxy had shown too much. It began in a hidden outpost, buried beneath the surface of the ice world Keltris, for a band of refugee survivors from El Yari Prime, Tridex, Delnax, and 2 other silent systems huddled in silence around a black console. Their faces were pale. Some bore scars from orbital strikes. Others carried only memories of what they had lost. But one thing united them all. They had survived the Deathworlders, and they were ready to do something no one else dared. They were going to send a new signal? Earth must be stopped, whispered Jael Wren. An El Yari comes expert who had seen her city turn to fire. They won't listen, said a Seldari archivist. They don't care about voices. They only see patterns. Threats. Jael didn't blink. Then let's become one. They had found it deep in the ruins of a forgotten relay tower, a pre-death worlder frequency, a ghost signal, one used in the old Orion Wars. The kind Earth couldn't intercept fast enough. It was dirty, it was unstable, but it could reach deep. Into the heart of uncharted space, to the places Earths feared, to the other worlds, the ones even the Deathworlders avoided. Giles' fingers moved across the control panel. Her voice was steady. Her message was short. To the powers beyond the maps, Earth is rising, and it will not stop. It brings fire, not peace. If you exist, if you hear us, this is not a plea for help. It is a warning, because Earth is now burning its way across the stars. Your worlds may be next. Then she pressed send, and the galaxy changed forever. Elsewhere, aboard the Deathworlder command ship, Judgment. The AI monitoring systems lit up with a red flash. Unrecognized signal detected. Its chirped commander, Reese Valen, walked slowly. Toward the screen? Coordinates? He asked. The AI hesitated. Unknown. Directional pulse sent toward the galactic dead zone. No known civilizations. No mapped star clusters. He narrowed his eyes, then said the words Earth had held back for centuries. Initiate final protocol. Across Deathworlder space, fleets that had remained in hibernation woke. Engines roared to life. Black holes shifted from silence to movement. Entire battalions that had never been deployed activated. These weren't ships of response. They were ships of erasure. Their purpose: to ensure no signal from a burned world was ever heard again. Not by friend, not by enemy, not by anything. On Keltris 4, Jael's transmitter glowed softly, then sparked, then caught fire. Too late, the signal had already escaped, and now, something beyond Earth's reach had heard it. Somewhere in the uncharted dark. Ancient machines blinked to life. Somewhere deeper, in a place no map dared touch. Cold intelligence stirred. Not human, not even mortal. Just aware and hungry. Because Earth had burned too many voices, it had silenced too.
How many truths?
And now, the silence was calling back. On Earth, the leaders gathered behind sealed doors. This changes nothing, one said. We expected this. But no one truly believed it, because the fire Earth had used to burn others was now casting light in places it had never reached before. And what lived in those places had teeth on the edge of the galaxy. Strange new signals echoed into space. Not from refugees, not from survivors, but from watchers. Things older than fear. Things that had waited for a reason. To rise again, Earth had given them one. And in her final log, Jael Wren whispered the last words ever sent from Keltras 4. We may die here, but they will see what Earth truly is. Not a protector, not a judge, just a weapon. And every weapon eventually meets something it cannot kill. The galaxy had learned to fear Earth. Now, Earth would learn what it meant to be feared.